So yesterday, I was speaking about the way that moral panic is being used to distract us from actual morality, from the actual things that government does that have to do with our morality. Because what government doesn't do is govern our sex lives or govern their sex lives or govern anything. It has nothing to do, their sex lives have nothing to do with us. What it has to do with us is our freedom. And, you know, the thing is, we enjoy this too. It's like pornography. It really is. It is like pornography. We are more interested in the stories about Roy Moore diddling a 14-year-old, if he ever did, than we would be interested in stories about regulation. You know, over the weekend, there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal where they know a thing or two about business, saying the reason the economy is doing so incredibly well is because of Trump pulling back all the regulations. And if you see a chart between how many regulations Trump has issued versus the last presidents, it's amazing. I mean, he's reduced regulations to a trickle as well as getting rid of old regulations. But that's not interesting. Now, I talk about that. I've talked about this on the show. I've talked about how important it was way before Trump took office, way before he was even running. I've talked about regulation, but I know that it's not what grabs you. Sex grabs you. And all of us enjoy talking about this stuff. And it works exactly. The news is now working exactly the way pornography works. If you are a guy, you have probably looked at pornography. If you haven't, just send me a self-addressed stamped envelope. I'm joking. Don't do that. just a couple of bucks and I'll send you some pornography. But when you look at pornography, if you're paying attention, you see that men are wired so that when they look at naked women, basically, or something that excites them, a little click goes off in your head. And the whole art of life is making sure that's all we are as bodies. We're just a series of clicks and chemical reactions. As bodies, that's what we are. But if you want to be the full human being that God made you to be, that you're supposed to be, that you know you're not, you start to try and align those clicks with what your soul is doing. And this is just true of the simplest things. I mean, if I could go into your brain, and somebody probably could, and make you think it was raining, right? You would see rain, you would have that click, and there would be the rain, but it wouldn't be raining. People talk, I had Jordan Peterson on, and Peterson said, well, you know, it's no question in his intellectual way, this is what intellectuals say, they say, you know, there's no question that it's of value to people to have religious experiences. And I said, yes, but the question is, does the religious experience relate to something real? Does it relate to God? And what you want to do is align the religious experience in your mind with the actual God on the other side of the veil, right? And the same thing is true about sex and love and affection and care for somebody else. You want to make sure that when those clicks go off, it's actually related to something human and deep and rich and soulful. And that is part of the whole trick of life. The news is constantly encouraging you to do the opposite. It's just like pornography. It's constantly encouraging you to have that click go off so that you have important conversation. You know, who was a master of this? Obama. Obama brought up transgenderism and who should work, you know, who should use what bathrooms to distract from the fact that he had bobbled the Middle East. He had set the Middle East on fire. He had sat on the economy so that it was 1% growth for years and years and years and years. He had bobbled everything. But, oh, look over there. There's a transgender person using your daughter's bathroom. There's a boy using your daughter's bathroom. And we all did it. We all went, oh, we were talking about this. And when I would say to people, this has zero meaning. It has zero meaning. They would get offended. They would get offended. What are you talking about? This, you know, would be molesting and people this, you know, I'd say zero meaning. It has zero meaning. The only point here is that Barack Obama should not be talking about who uses a bathroom in Tennessee or anywhere else. The way I always got around all this, the way I always got around the kind of pornographic effects of life was to imagine what would happen after the feeling passed, after the emotion passed. So there was, you know, I have been in a highly paid worker in very glamorous businesses. There were pretty girls around. Sometimes these pretty girls would be available to me. I have a family. I have a wife that I adore. I don't want to be stepping out on my wife. And the way that I would get around the sensation, the temptation, the sudden urge that told me it was urgently important that I go off with this girl because she was beautiful and young and available. The way I would get around that is I would imagine what was going to happen after the experience was over. And I would imagine, for instance, the look in my children's faces when I had to move out. You know, that'll kill your sexual desire in a big, big hurry. So the people who are panicking over Roy Moore in Alabama, just imagine afterwards, when you don't have the votes to pass the Trump agenda, when you don't have the votes for tax reform, when you don't have the votes for dialing back government, for rearranging entitlements in Obamacare, it's not going to be so much fun. You can always get rid of Roy Moore, but it's going to be much harder to get rid of, I think, get rid of a Democrat if you elect him.